All right, so we are now joined by UPenn head basketball coach Steve Donahue. Coach Donahue, thanks so much for joining us today. Very wild world out there at the moment.
It certainly is. It's probably an understatement, but thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So, of course, with this interview taking place on Thursday, July 9th, the news just came out yesterday that the Ivy League announced all sports will basically be halted until at least January. So, of course, we have to start here. What could you tell us about just basically how you feel about the decision? Were you on board with this decision, and also how you think this is going to impact the season as a whole?
Well, a couple things. One, I have great trust in our presidents, our athletic directors, and the doctors that they're relying on. I thought all 8 campuses had a plan, and when they addressed athletics, I don't think they thought it was safe enough for our athletes to continue. Now, this was only addressing fall sports. It hasn't really addressed winter sports. There is a scenario that we could play, all 8 of us could play once your semester concludes.
Okay.
We don't have clarification on that yet. So could it involve non-league games prior to January? But as I said, I think I have great trust. I don't think anybody has the right answer what this is going to look like a day from now, a week from now, a month from now, 6 months from now.
Right.
And I thought we did the best we could with it.
That kind of leads into my next question. So you mentioned, and I feel like there's some people out there right now that think that this means that the Ivy League is out of non-conference activity for the basketball season. You're saying that that's not necessarily true at the moment.
That has not been clarified yet.
Okay.
Men's basketball, women's basketball. What is for sure is we're not going to play non-league games, from my understanding, before the semester ends.
Okay.
But like Dartmouth's semester ends November 17th.
Right.
Brown's is December 11th. There's still time for non-league games.
Okay. That's good clarification there. Can you give us any more insight behind the scenes into what the timetable is for making these determinations? I mean, when do you see I know it's tough to say at the moment, but how long do you think that the Ivy League is going to give themselves to make a decision on whether or not they're going to get involved in non-conference play?
I think it's pretty simple, Joe. I think it comes down to all the numbers in your area, Philadelphia. For us, they're going to phase us in. We're allowed to right away be in the weight room, 25 or less. We're able to do individual workouts right away. And there's going to be phases, and we haven't been introduced to them, but they're going to be based on the numbers of the COVID in your area. And listen, we have to have some good luck here. We have to have some people starting to follow the rules. So this starts, one, the virus starts to diminish.
Right.
And 2, we're all hopeful that there's an end game here in terms of a vaccine.
Right.
But it's going to be phased in. And that, to me, no one, like you and I are talking, and I've talked to commissioners, head coaches, we're all talking the same.
Yeah.
No one knows.
No,
I'm sure that all the leagues in the country right now are looking at what the Ivy League did. In my opinion, it's hard not to go with fall sports being pushed in the spring.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've changed. My sentiment over the past couple of weeks has been I don't think we're going to see fall sports. And everyone's talking about how the Ivy League was the first league to cancel the conference tournament back, when this whole thing first started. So they're thinking, and a lot of people are thinking that's going to be what sets forward everything else in the fall as well. And we'll see if that's the case. Last question on, just all the uncertainty. Being an Ivy League coach, obviously academics are paramount here. What are your thoughts on online academics as a whole in general? Do you think that it's an adequate solution to the current situation?
Unfortunately, I think it's something that can be supplemented, meaning if there's a large class and we want to do that one online. But in general, I don't think it's the way we should be teaching our young kids. And I have 4 children. I think it's difficult for high school kids, elementary school, and even college. College is based on the reason we go to college, in my opinion, is relationships and learning from professors and growing as a person in those social situations. Like, we're taking that away, and I don't think it's adequate as a complete fix, but in terms of what I think schools have to do and supplementing it, I understand that.
Yeah. Again, I'm on the same wavelength as you there as well. So I guess, for the time being, we'll have to wait and see, obviously, what goes on. I appreciate your thoughts on those comments. Let's transition into, some of the actual, basketball aspect of
Nice.
Penn. And, you guys have 2 graduating seniors that have been, a wildly important part of your team for the past 4 years, Ryan Betley and AJ Broder. Basically have been playing since they got there. And I just wanted your thoughts on, their departure and also just, how you anticipate life being in the future without them.
Well, I would also mention Devin Goodman as well. That's 3 seniors. All 3 of them were all Ivy during their careers. AJ was player of the year, all-time leading scorer, block shots, top 5 in assists and rebounding. And more importantly, they were basically our first class that we brought in.
Right.
Won Big 5 championship, won an Ivy League championship. It's not going to be easy. But what I think they allowed us to do, because we were able to play them right away, we were able to build a program around them that I feel can take another huge jump. I don't think we're anywhere close to where I feel we can get to as a program. I think they left it in a better space, but I also feel strongly that we're probably more talented through our classes than we've ever been, and I'm excited about that.
And you guys had an up and down start to this past season, and then you kind of started getting things together as conference play went on. You were very close to beating Yale for a second time, and I wanted to just touch on that game. What the hell happened in the last minute of that game, and what could you teach your guys on, going forward? Are there any learning experiences that come of that?
Yeah, that was probably the most remarkable game in my career. I've never lost a 12-point lead with $1:30 left.
Yeah.
6 turnovers. I've relived each possession. I don't know necessarily, Joe, if you learned something from that exactly, but however, I was really proud of what we did learn, how to handle when that happens. We came back and beat Brown. We had a win. That was essentially a playoff game for us at Brown 22 hours after that happened. Our ability to get over that, I thought, was huge. And honestly, I thought we played our best basketball those last 2 weekends. 3 freshmen really feeling themselves for the first time and being confident. Everybody, for the most part, healthy. So, I thought we were going to look back at that game if we had the tournament and feel that was a reason we won a championship, because we went through that, pretty much handled Yale on their own floor, gave it away, and we're still able to get back into the conference playoff. So
I remember and that's a unique aspect of the Ivy League, is you get those back-to-backs. I remember thinking you guys were going to be flat that next night, and you were not. So that was it showed very good resolve there. You won your last 3 games. Of course, you're going to be relatively young this following season here, that whenever it may start. But, Jordan Dingle is already starting to catch the eye of basically everybody. I mean, he's being considered one of the best young players in the league. How do you see yourself deploying him as well as his supporting cast in this upcoming year?
Yeah, although we are fairly young, Joe, we do have experienced guys who, over the last couple of years, have missed injuries. Probably the most talented and highly recruited kid I got since I've been at Penn was Jelani Williams, and we just haven't seen him. 3 ACLs.
Mm-hmm.
He's healthy. When he was healthy, we went to Italy, and he was our best player. So I feel strongly if he's healthy, he'll be a big piece. You mentioned Jordan. Jordan is very talented. Most of my calls from the NBA talk about AJ, and then they get to Jordan. Right. So I do feel strongly he's a person that we can build around. Michael Wong had a very good freshman year until he got hurt, missed most of the end of his freshman year. He missed all of last year. He's back. He will be a big piece. Jonah Charles was starting for us last year as a freshman in our 2 scrimmages. I think he's someone that can really come in and play a lot. Max Martz was the only 80, 50, 40 guy in our league last year. He's back. And then we have really good, talented guys who have played throughout. I think Max Lurker-Lloyd, who's a 4-star recruit, is someone that probably will play a great deal. Eddie Scott started most of the season. He's back. Jared Simmons has been a big piece of us at the 5. He's back. So, and I like our freshmen. I do. Lucas Monroe started and played a great deal as well. Bryce Washington started as a freshman, missed last year, mostly with injury. So it's a long list, and I think it's exciting. As I stated to you when you mentioned about the 3 seniors leaving, I feel really comfortable with this group. They know how to play. There's a level of athleticism and size that we probably haven't had since I got here.
Yeah, I remember you making a few comments about that even last year, talking about your incoming class, and it says a lot because as I mentioned, I mean, it might get overshadowed a bit by the seniors that are leaving, but it seems like you have a good core coming in behind them. I wanted to talk a little bit about the stats and the numbers. Specific statistic that you guys have excelled in over the past 3 seasons has been defensive assist rate, which basically compares shots that it's a ratio of shots that are assisted, and you guys are rank among the best. You've been top 10 the last 3 seasons in limiting shots that result from assists. Is this a statistic that you have placed emphasis on, or do you think it's just a result of the defensive style that you teach?
I think it's a little bit of both, Joe. When I left BC, I took a year off and just really evaluated my philosophies on both sides of the ball. Our teams at BC, my 4 years, we had the number 1 offense 2 out of the 4 years. Mm-hmm. And I still was fired. I needed to figure out on the other side of the ball. With that, I think what ends up being an assisted play is typically a catch and shoot 3 or a layup.
Right.
And that's what essentially everybody doesn't want to give up. And we build our defense around that. And we do look at that. And we do set our scrimmages and our drills based on that. For instance, if we scrimmage, anytime we scrimmage during the year, and you give up an assisted catch and shoot 3, it's worth 6 points to the opponent. If you give up an assisted layup, it's worth 4. So 2 things. One, it makes your defense better because those are the 2 things you don't want to give up. But it makes your offense figure out how to get those. And I think we've gotten pretty good on both sides of that. But it is a statistic. I look back and throughout my career, I've lost very few games where I've given up 10 or less assists. Just tells you something that's happening that's very good.
Yeah. We haven't done this yet, but I just want to show your page here on KenPom. Your last 4 years have been your best 4 in terms of adjusted defensive efficiency. So, I mean, this was the stat I was referring to over here. Top 3 in the last 3 seasons. Top 10 in the last 3 seasons in defensive assist rates. So, I mean, it's one thing to talk about it, but it's clearly the results are there, and it's really interesting to see the transition and the success that you've had just from making some tweaks and taking that year off and whatnot. So
Joe, if you just look at that, the year we won a championship, as I said to you all along, we were very down when we took over the program. I
yeah,
think defense won us a championship.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I mean, that was 2018. That was your best. That was your best
yeah.
defensive year since basically ever as a coach.
72nd in the country. We were 22nd. And I
Yep.
know everyone likes Ken Pom. We were 22nd in the country in raw defense.
Yep.
Like that's essentially, that's what you can control. You can't control your opponents necessarily, but as good
Exactly.
as you can do, we were 22nd
And as you
compared
can
to our
see in
competition.
the conference, number one effective field goal percentage against, number one in 3-point percentage against. That was
Assist and threes given up.
yeah, everything is top notch there. So, I mean, it's definitely been a tremendous improvement, and I'm looking forward to seeing. You're talking even more growth, and I get really excited about Ivy League basketball, and the Ivy League has shown that it could compete on a national stage when it does get to the tournament. I know you guys were,
No
you know,
question.
a big upset pick that year that you made it as the 16 seed, and I'm sure
Yeah.
that you guys heard a lot of that. I asked Bill Cohen this a couple weeks ago. We talked to him. They also played Kansas, I believe it was the following year, and they were a huge upset pick that year as well. Did you hear that noise? Did your team hear that noise? Did it factor in? Did you feel like you had to kind of block that out going into that game against Kansas?
No, not necessarily. I think it's brought up so much in that stage, and I think we were um, I think it was only a 6.5 point favorite, and there was
Yeah,
14s and 15 seeds
yeah,
that were actually higher, um, and we were in the game. So no, I think that's part of it. I thought we played well. Kansas obviously went to a Final Four. They were very good. Um, the reason I get back to the league in itself and our depth, I think the league is really good. I think there's a chance this league, and I say two bids is it's going to be problematic just because of the net. But after these last two non-league seasons, we were in the 50s.
right.
We just did not take care of business in our league, and part of that is the league's really good.
Yeah,
But I do feel that's where um, we can take a huge step. And the bigger step is the biggest issue I've had since I've been back is our inconsistency shooting the ball from three. We shoot it a lot. We get the fourth most best quality shots according to some websites. Dribblehandoff.com is one that we look at, and we just haven't made them. I
yeah.
think we've done a lot of good things, and I think that's where we can take a huge step is in that sense on the offensive side.
Um, Basically, last couple of questions here. First of all, I wanted your quick thoughts. Fran Dunphy coming back to the school. I'm sure you have a good relationship with him. Just a few of your quick thoughts there.
Yeah. Well, I think it's great that he's asked upon. I don't think he was looking for it to come back, but man, for Temple to have a resource like him, and honestly, the coaches in that department, with all the anxiety that's going on, you couldn't imagine. It's just not college basketball, but it's all our field hockey team, for instance, sees Stanford drop the program. Just the anxiety throughout your kids, and that Fran Dunphy in your department, because he can talk to you and make sense of everything
Yeah.
and be someone that can really help them make solid decisions going forward. I don't know if it's a long-term plan for him. I would doubt it, but I think for them to have him was a pretty smart move on Temple's part.
Yeah. And then one last question regarding just the non-conference. You mentioned, a big part of getting two bids is non-conference scheduling, and of course beating those non-conference opponents that are up there. You mentioned that it's challenging once you get into the conference. I would argue that, the back-to-backs do not help anything there. What could you tell
I
us
would
just
agree.
about your non-conference schedule? If it does happen this year, of course, you're going to have, the Big Five as usual. Are there any other, highlight matchups that you could give us at the moment? And, how do you feel about the schedule?
Yeah, we try to schedule typically 4 Big 5 games, which are really good games.
Yep.
Should be top 50 to top 100. Then we'll go with 2 guarantees. Last year, Providence and Alabama. We won them both. And then we'll do an ESPN multi-team event. Last year we got Central Florida, beat them. Had Arizona, and then we beat Long Beach State. This year was a similar setup for Big 5. Old Dominion, Texas Christian, and then down at ESPN, Myrtle Beach with Pitt, Nebraska, Loyola Chicago. But they're most likely all of them are out.
Yeah.
We're at Penn State later in the month of December. I'm hopeful for that.
Okay.
But I don't think there's going to be more than just post first semester at best.
So, Christmas break type situation
Yeah.
is what we're targeting. Okay.
Here's the other thing I'll say to you, Joe. I do think the basketball committee, Dan Gavitt, excuse me, get mixed up, will come up at some point because I think we're all going to go up. I think we're all going to league games.
Yeah.
Now, can we say after the first semester, put in some of these tournaments just to give it? And there's going to have to be some kind of adjustment to the net to help organize this. And I just think that's where we're headed.
Right.
That this is going to be sprinkled in and then your league.
As far as is there any consideration right now being given to like a May Madness and just pushing the entire season back?
I think that's been on the table. My gut is that with all the other things that are in flux, they're going to have to wait. Does football get pushed back?
Right.
All these things. I think right now, most conferences are talking about just league games.
Yeah.
It doesn't take much planning. We can do this, and then the world gets better. There's a vaccine.
Yeah, I mean,
size.
That's what you always have. That's the balancing act there because as a mid-major fan, what I see if you go to only league games is it's going to be extremely difficult for mid-majors to get at-large bids. It's already difficult as it is now.
Correct.
And, that's only going to make it that much more difficult. But at the same time, you got to balance that, it's a global health pandemic at the moment. So, it depends on, you got to find the balance there. And if it means, only having the auto bids from mid majors get in, but, you're able to limit the spread, then, for a year, so be it. But at the same time, you feel for teams that have that at-large opportunity this year that don't end up winning their conference or winning their conference tournament.
Couldn't we for 1 year even determine that we're going to take 4 or 5?
Just as a
because we didn't get a chance
number.
Yep. And it still gives the high majors a ton of bids.
Right.
And it gives mids really opportunities to shoot for as you play your league and conference tournament.
I agree.
Something like that.
I agree. And that's not a bad thing to consider. And, I hope that they do consider something like that. You got the Ivy, you got, 2 teams out of Missouri Valley that look like they're at-large contenders this year. The A-10 is probably going to have 3 at-large caliber teams. So I hope that there's some, type of consolation there or some type of deal that's figured out. But until then, Coach, we really appreciate you coming on today and giving us some of this insight. It was awesome to have you kind of right after this news. It's not great news, but hopefully it improves as the semester goes on and we're able to see you guys on the court sooner rather than later.
Great. I enjoyed it, Joe. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Have a good one and stay safe.